Howdy folks, this is Shane. Today I'm doing a brand new gear rundown video. I've had so many requests via Facebook, Instagram, YouTube and everywhere else to put one of these new videos together with kind of like my current lineup of stuff that I use when I play live, stuff that I do demos with as well. So I'll cover also some of the studio gear as well as what pedals I'm currently using. They can always change, but some of the stuff that I'm using still this year was the same stuff I was using last year as well. So we'll cover just about everything I can think of. If you do want to skip to any particular section, I'll put a time code in the description below and you can click through to any particular part. So if you want to skip straight to guitars or amps or whatever, just click those time codes down there and it will take you straight to that point. This particular video might be a little bit longer than some of my other ones, but that said, I think it'll be justified and hopefully you get something out of this as well. If you have any questions about any of the stuff, leave some comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I do endeavor to reply to any new comments as soon as the videos go live. So keep that in mind, be quick with your comments and I'll definitely get back to you. Let's get into it. This is my Fender Blues Deluxe reissue amplifier and I predominantly use this on all of my videos because it's such a great clean platform. I very rarely ever use it on the drive channel unless I take it to a gig and my pedal board is not working. Or if I can crank it up loud enough, you can kind of get a good sound out of it. The Swamp Thing speaker that I've put in here in replacement of the original makes a massive, massive difference. If you want to upgrade the sound in any of your amplifiers, change the speaker first. It should make a massive difference. The speaker in this that I chose for it actually retains all of the Fender kind of vibe that you'd expect from a Fender amp. It doesn't sort of do anything that it shouldn't do for this particular amp. I think it retains its character but has way more character now thanks to the speaker upgrade. In a live situation, I very rarely get this past 3 on the clean channel master volume. These get loud very, very quickly, and with my pedal board actually pushing it, I don't foresee myself selling this at any point. This is an amp that served me extremely well. If you're wondering what this is, I just keep that on the top of the amp when I have it at home. This is the original cardboard sleeve that came with it. I just think it looks kind of cool. That's about it. Overall, you just can't go wrong with these amps. They're rated at 40 watts and they're extremely loud. If you're after a good pedal platform amp that has a little bit more mids than say a Hot Rod Deluxe, this would be a really great choice, although they're definitely not as warm or as modern sounding as a Hot Rod Deluxe. Up next, we have an amplifier that I was looking for quite a long time. If you didn't see my actual video about how I got this and the price I got it for an absolute bargain loaded with a whole bunch of extra accessories worth about $1,000. I picked it up for 155 bucks or something like that, 152.50 from memory. It might have been something like that. If you haven't seen that video, I'll pop it up in the cards and you can check that out as well. This is the Peavey Studio Pro 112. These are a 60 watt amplifier loaded with a single 12-inch speaker. These are physically quite a bit smaller, maybe about a third smaller than the Peavey Bandits. So overall, the cabinet size makes them not as loud or as big sounding. The speaker magnet on this particular amp as well isn't as big as the Peavey Bandit 112 either, so you're not going to get the same sort of throw of sound from this amplifier, but that's why I wanted it. I wanted something I could use at lower volumes and still get a really great clean channel sound as well as a very usable drive channel without any pedals, and that's where these amps shine. Love them or hate them, I can get a really great sound out of any of these Peavey amplifiers. They just seem to work extremely well in certain situations. If I want to be really loud, I'll take the Peavey Bandit or I'll take the Fender Blues Deluxe. If I want to do a smaller gig and not be as loud or get too carried away with the volume, the Peavey Studio Pro Red Stripe is an awesome amplifier. What I really dig about this amp in particular is the clean channel. The modern setting on this particular one seems to be my personal favorite for whatever reason. It's just a little bit fatter and it kind of makes the amp seem a little bit louder. And the lead channel on this is actually pretty cool too. I actually don't mind, I think it's the high gain mode on this one, which is really weird. I would never use that on a Peavey Bandit, but for the lead tones of this on the high gain mode, it actually sounds pretty good. The vintage mode's also really nice. It's that classic off clean kind of, you know, tube screamer-ish kind of overdrive tone without going too over the top, but it absolutely sounds great with the gain cranked up as well, so I dig it. I was lucky enough to find this amp for an absolute bargain, and what can I say, it was in mint condition, so I just couldn't pass it up. This next amplifier under my cheap party LED sign is a made in America Peavey Studio Pro 112, and it's an absolute ripper. This particular amp seems a whole lot louder than the Red Stripe one for whatever reason. The funny thing is, I actually had the Silver Stripe PV Bandit as well as the Red Stripe PV Bandit, and the Red Stripe PV Bandit to my ear seems louder than the silver one. But in the case of the Studio Pros, that's actually reversed for whatever reason. This seems a little bit louder than the Studio Pro with the Red Stripe. So I don't know why that is, but to get this onto 3, it's extremely loud, and it's pretty cool too. I really dig it. Over the years, I've been lucky enough to play a whole lot of PV amplifiers, especially when I was in the US. That's where it all started. I got to play some of these amps in San Francisco and just fell in love with how cheap they were, as well as how loud they were and how great they sounded, both clean and with an overdrive pedal. I was stunned at how great they were. So that's how this happened. Ed, if you're watching this, mate, this is all your fault. So for $100, mint condition, I thought, you know what? It's worth a gamble, basically. In Australia, $100 doesn't buy you anything when it comes to music gear. So $100 for this was an absolute steal. And I thought, you know what? Even if I use it just occasionally for demos or whatever, then it's just something that I'll definitely take to a gig too if I ever need it, or if anyone ever needs to borrow an amp or something like that as well. It's a cool little amplifier. Now, here's a question that comes up a lot. What are my thoughts on the Red Stripe PV Bandits or Studio Pros that are made in China versus the ones made in the US? I've only ever owned the Chinese ones. I haven't actually found a USA made one in Australia. Not to say that they don't exist, but being that we're much closer to Asia, I think we've just got a lot of that stock, whereas a lot of the ones that were made in the US probably landed in the US. I know you can get them here, but every single one of these that I've owned with the Red Stripe have always been made in China, and they've served me really, really well. I think I've had 3 PV Bandits with the Red Stripes, and now I've had this particular Studio Pro. The last one of these that I tested, it was a friend of mine. It was also made in China and sounded fine as well. So I don't think there's that much in it. I just think it comes down to which version do you like the sound of the best. The Red Stripe or the Silver Stripe, or maybe a different incarnation of the amp as well. So it's all kind of personal choice. All right, this little guy is my Bugera V5 Infinium amplifier, which I've essentially kept all stock apart from changing one of the tubes in the back. I changed the EL84, I think it is, to a JJ's one because the one that was in here started to rattle. My friend Brian actually just gave me one and said, here, put this in, and I did, and it stopped the rattle altogether. This is a great little amp for playing at home. There's a million reasons why I like it. I think it sounds quite good as well, but the best thing about it is it has 3 different power settings, 0.1 watts, 1 watt, and 5 watts. So you can definitely get many different volume stages out of it. I actually use it only on 0.1 or 1 watts. I very rarely run this on 5 watts unless I'm recording with it for whatever reason through my 2 notes or something like that. This has a turbo sound speaker, which is actually quite good. I think they make pretty decent speakers, no doubt about it. Let me just focus here so you can see it. And yeah, it's a nice little amp. I didn't expect to buy this amp when I first saw it. I came across this at a shop that I had no idea even sold music equipment, and then it was like hundreds of dollars cheaper buying it from them as opposed to music shops. So I thought, you know what, for that price, I'm gonna give it a go. And I don't regret it at all. I think it's a really great little practice amp. I don't plan on selling this for whatever reason. I think it's a really cool little amp that you can use at home, or that I can use at home. And yeah, it kind of looks cool on my very small wall of amps. Up next and lastly, we have the PV Bandit 112 Red Stripe Edition. This is made in China, and I've kind of boosted the price of these online, unfortunately, through to all the hype, or at least that's what everyone seems to tell me. It was an awesome amplifier. I picked this up for 150 or 160 bucks or something like that several years ago now. A guy had upgraded, put that in quotations, to a Blues Cube. Not to say there's anything wrong with a Blues Cube, but I think they're very, very comparable amps. If you already have these, you probably don't need a Blues Cube. If you already have a Blues Cube, you don't probably need a PV Bandit. This has literally become my jam amplifier. Anytime I go to a jam night and I basically just want to plug in with no effects pedals, which is on the most part how I go to jams now. I don't tend to take a lot of pedals with me. I just take this amp and I use the vintage lead channel, and it absolutely rocks. Now, the trick to getting the lead channel to really sing is to have the post gain up at about the number 6 on the dial, so 1 o'clock, and have the lead channel somewhere around 5 or 6 as well, which makes it extremely loud and really, really nice. And what I tend to do too, kind of max out the low end turn the mids up, and bring the treble down to about 4, depending on the room. If it's a really dark sounding room with lots of carpet, I might etch that up a bit to midday. But generally around 11 o'clock, that should sound pretty cool. And that's kind of like my settings for the lead channel. And the clean channel just takes pedals extremely well. This is as good as any Fender amp, just in terms of a pedal platform. I don't really care what anyone says about it not feeling great to play and all that kind of stuff. I think it plays and basically speaks for itself when you hear it. Good. So that's all of my amps. If you have any questions about any of the amps, please let me know. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Now, I plan on probably moving the Silver Stripe PV Studio Pro along. It's kind of cool having the matching pair of the red stripe ones. I don't know why, but my good friend Brian has the Silver Stripe one and he was after it as well. There's another one of my friends, Carl, it as well. But I figure he's already bought the last Silver Stripe PV Bandit off me. Maybe he wants to, you know, have the same type of matching collection as well. Actually, I think that was his idea. But anyway, so that's all of my amplifiers. It's a nice and simple collection and they all serve a very good purpose, minus the fact I've kind of doubled up on the Studio Pro. But other than that, they all get used and they all get used in a different situation. That's the idea. There's no point really doubling up on a lot of different stuff and then only forever tweaking them when you play live. I know these amps back to front, I can plug them in and I'm good to go without really having to think about it too much anymore. Up next we have my electric guitar collection and maybe a bass as well. I might throw that in for good measure. I don't have lots and lots of guitars either. I kind of have maybe a couple more than I would like. And I know that's kind of counterproductive. A lot of guitar players always want to get more stuff. I kind of feel like what I have now is about as much as I actually need. There might be room for one more coming up, but I won't spoil that right now. We'll see how we go. Now we're going to start with the guitar that probably most people have seen a million times on my channel, and the one that probably gets some of the most favorable things said about it for whatever reason. This is the one I had the Joe Barton, Danny Gatton pickups in. This is my 52 reissue Telecaster, and now it's loaded with MJS custom pickups. The handmade pickups in Canada. I absolutely love this thing. I've had the guitar re-fretted with stainless steel 6105 frets when the original vintage frets wore out, and since then it's been fantastic. I recently also replaced the pots and switching and all that kind of stuff and just basically put some newer components in there. This is made in the USA as well. I bought this at Haight Street Music in San Francisco and I absolutely love it. There's something to be said about that 50s profile neck. It's just a really great thing to put in your hand. If you haven't played a 50s Tele before, definitely pick one up. This isn't a baseball bat fat kind of neck, but it is kind of chunky and I absolutely dig it. You might be saying, is that a relic guitar because it has some of this discoloration on here? Nope, that's just the way it has moved or changed over time. I don't know why I said moved, but that's just the way that it's worn over time. These black marks actually something to do with the finish and something about it that's just being used. It's got a lot of scratches on the back. It might be hard to see. If you do have a 4K monitor, put the video up in 4K. You should be able to see some of that stuff as well. It's got the 3 brass saddles. It also comes with the little cover here as well, which I never use, but if you like Albert Collins, it definitely looks the business. I absolutely dig this guitar. And it's a guitar I don't plan on ever selling or replacing with anything else. And that's part of the reason I didn't buy that custom shop Black Relic Telecaster a while back, was not only the price of it, but I just don't want to have this guitar replaced. It kind of has maybe the most sentimental value out of most of my guitars. It's just a beautiful guitar. Bought it in the States, gigged with it over there, and did plenty of shows in Australia with it as well, and I absolutely love it. I think it's a really great guitar. So that's my 52 Telecaster reissue. All right, up next, because it's the next guitar that was actually out right now that I've been shooting some videos with and absolutely loving playing lately. This is my Tokai LS110 left-handed Les Paul style guitar, Japanese made Tokai. And what can I tell you about this other than it feels amazing? For those who have never played a Tokai guitar, they're kind of similar to Greco and many other brands like Bernie as well. These are really easy to get in Australia. You could walk into any second-hand shop that's an actual guitar store and find so many Japanese electric guitars. Not so many lefties, but in Australia, Tokai guitars are really easy to find. And just to put it into some kind of context, I actually owned a Gibson custom shop Voss gold top electric for quite some time. It was probably, I had it for about 3 years, and then I got this because I wanted humbuckers. My other one had P90s. If someone handed me either of these in like blindfolded without plugging it in, I wouldn't be able to tell which was which. They both felt pretty much identical to each other. The only difference was the Gibson had some relicking on the bridge, but that said, this is a really great guitar. This is 100% stock. Nothing on this has been changed. I don't even think I've tinkered with the height of the pickups or anything from memory. I might have done that, but I don't recall doing anything other than putting some strap locks on, these really cheap and nasty ones right here. Otherwise, this is all stock. Initially, when I bought this, I fell in love with the tone. I didn't fall in love with this actual finish. It's a bit too slash for me, and not that there's anything wrong with slash, but it's not, you know, this isn't my first choice for a Les Paul in terms of color. It's probably my third choice. I'd take a gold top first, I'd then take that tobacco burst kind of color second, and then this would be my third choice. But you know what? The fact that it played so good and sounded so good, I overlooked the fact that the color wasn't what I was exactly after. Now, to put this into some sort of context, this cost me 1,700 bucks in Australia. My Gibson, which was secondhand, cost me almost 4,000. Now, I know for a secondhand guitar, it's a lot of money. It was never played, so it was technically new old stock, which was awesome. But for its price, performance, feel, all that kind of stuff, this is up there with some of the best you're ever gonna find from Gibson. Now, if you ever get a chance to play a Tokai, let me know your thoughts. These Japanese ones are just simply fantastic. It has a 50s profile neck as well. So it has that nice chunky neck that I love. And when I saw Chris Kane, one of my favorite blues guitarists who's on the wall back here, this guy, I saw him in Melbourne, got to meet him as well, have a chat to him. He played a Les Paul straight into a Fender amp and it sounded just insanely good. I actually streamed that gig on Facebook, and what can I say? It inspired me to play that guitar more, and that's what I played for a few months, pretty much non-stop at a lot of gigs with this particular guitar, just because it doesn't buzz, it felt great to play, it has classic tones. You get so much out of a really great sounding Les Paul. The great thing about this too, it doesn't seem to suffer any tuning issues. I can play this all night and not have to worry too much about the tuning. I don't know why. You would think it would be pretty much the same as a Gibson. It's got the vintage style Clouson tuners on the back of the headstock. But that said, it stays in tune extremely well, so I don't know what the deal is with a lot of the Gibsons that go out of tune. Some of them I've had have been fine, others haven't been. But overall, once the strings break in, it stays in tune pretty well. Up next, we have another Tokai electric guitar. I want to show you this case as well. The actual Les Paul comes in a case that looks pretty much exactly the same as this, except it's shaped a little bit differently. But this is my Tokai 145L ES335 style guitar. This is also made in Japan. This is an absolute beast. It's one of my favorite guitars of all time in terms of its shape and feel. Everything about this is great. Check out this case. It's beautiful. So here's my Tokai 335 up close. Like I said, it's the 145L. L stands for lefties. If you want to find out more about this and you're right-handed, just leave the L off and it should come up. Now, in terms of the neck feel and all of that kind of stuff, it's exactly the same as the Les Paul. But the great thing about this guitar over the Les Paul is it's way, way lighter. And it has probably more sustain as well once you get it up to a particular volume. I think the F holes really do something for sustain on guitars. I think once it starts oscillating, you can feel a bit of wind coming out of the actual holes here as well, which is great. The reason I would probably play this over the Les Paul is if I only want to take one guitar with humbuckers and I have to play a relatively long gig. Being that this is so much lighter, it's definitely a lot better for your neck and back. It looks absolutely beautiful with the binding as well. They really nailed it. This is a really great sort of vintage style ES335. I've had this maybe 10 years now, something like that, and I've never looked back. It's the best 335 I've ever owned. I've owned some Epiphones that were great. I also owned a Gibson, which wasn't that great in this particular case, but this Tokai was the best of both worlds with a much more vintage sounding set of pickups. I dig it. All right, up next, this guitar has been on my channel a lot recently. It's the PRS SE, and there's a reason why this has been on the channel a lot. I absolutely love it. I can't believe I purchased this. And not to say that I thought it was going to be crap, I just didn't think it would be anywhere near as good as what it is. And after having a second set of ears, checking out how this sounds, in comparison to my other guitars, it did something extremely different. It just ticked all the boxes. The single coil mode's pretty good, but for me, I love it in standard humbucker mode. It's got lots of bite and top end and all that kind of stuff without getting woolly or dark. So for me, that's the sound that I like, and that means it's going to work well with almost any kind of pedal that you put in front of the amplifier as well. It looks great, there's no doubt about it. This finish looks really, really cool. It's not too over the top. This might not be for everyone, this type of finish. I see some people say it kind of looks cheap, and does it bother you that the wood's joined here and that? I don't care about any of that stuff on any of my guitars. That's not what makes me want to buy it. What makes me want to buy a guitar is how great it feels, how great it plays, and the kind of tones I get from it, and the kind of inspiration I get. What I really dig about this guitar is the fact I can get up to the 24th fret and hit that BB King high E. None of my other guitars offer you the ability to basically play up this high on the guitar as easily. So it's really cool for getting some really interesting bends and sustained notes. The sustain on this guitar is phenomenal. This is the only guitar, one of the only guitars, I think one of two maybe, that doesn't have a 50s sort of profile neck, but it doesn't need it. It's slightly wider and flatter. It's just not as deep this way, but I haven't thought twice about that since I've started playing it. This has been my go-to guitar for the last few weeks since I got it. I don't know how long I've had it, maybe a month now, and it's popped up on demos, on live clips, and all that kind of stuff. The reason is I love it. I think it's a really great guitar. I also follow a lot of the lefty forums and all that kind of stuff, and there seems to be quite a number of people who have been buying these and saying positive things. There's also a few guys that have said, oh, my one wasn't set up properly when I got it. But that's just little tweaks that you need to make. I ended up having to set the intonation on this myself. Otherwise, for, where's this made again? Korea? What can I tell you? It's a great guitar. If I had to pick one guitar to take to a gig, to play all night, say I was doing 4 sets, I would take this, just based on the fact it's nice and light, it has all the tones I could possibly like. Its split coil option's really good as well. The whammy bar works. It's just all good things. So if you haven't played one of these, go check them out. Up next we have maybe my most lackluster guitar in terms of visuals, but definitely one of my favorites to play just in terms of tone. The neck pickup on this guitar I absolutely love with some dirt. I think that's where it shines. And I also really dig bridge and middle pickup. I also love bridge pickup. I could play that for solos all day, but there's something about the quality of both of these pickups working together on this particular guitar that makes it sound great. You might be asking, what have I changed on this? The strings. I haven't changed anything else. Everything is bog standard stock. I've had a number of these guitars over the years. If you're a long-term subscriber, you might remember I also had pretty much the same guitar like this. It used to have the Texas Longhorn stickers on here. It had the maple fretboard, but otherwise, this is a really great guitar. I wasn't even thinking about the whole Hendrix thing being a lefty, but also this particular color combination is very Hendrix-y. That said, I really dig this guitar. I don't play Strats that much, but when I do need one for a demo or I want to take it out and have a play or record with it, it definitely does that sound extremely well. I'm using this on some of the parts on the rhythm guitars on my new album that I'm working on. So yeah, very cool, bog standard, nothing, you know, too crazy going on with this one. I think this is a 2016 model, or is it a 15? It's a 15. I bought it in 2016, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, there it is. Bog standard Mexican Stratocaster. Awesome. Coming up next, we have one of the best guitars in my entire collection and something that I need to play more. Every time I pick this up, I'm always like, man, this sounds so good. I should play it more often than I do. And I'm gonna make more of an effort for that this year as well. This is the SD Corvino from Little Crow Guitars. This is an Australian-made guitar, and you might be wondering what the SD stands for. They're actually my initials, so Dave and Viv were nice enough to kind of credit me on that for sort of helping them conceptualize some of the things about this and give them basically feedback on different, you know, versions of this guitar. And this was the first one that really spoke to me, and I thought, yeah, this is pretty much perfect. I love the finish. I actually had 2 of these. I had one that was a brown finish. I actually sent that back. I just really love this black sort of finish. I think it looks really good. We have a set of Briley pickups here, mini humbucker, which is amazing, and the Telecaster bridge pickup. I gotta say, both pickups in particular sound amazing as well. They're just all good. They're all good. I asked for the actual controls to roll the same way as the Gibson, so on as backwards. You might not agree with me there, but most of my guitars that go that way I kind of prefer now because I'm so used to it. So this has a 52 style neck, like a 52 tally style neck in terms of its thickness. So if you like 52 tallies and all that, you're definitely gonna dig this particular neck. The scale length is kind of similar as well. And check out the headstock. I love this. They've got their medallion sort of sitting or recessed in here on the headstock. It looks really, really great. I don't have any problems with tuning or anything with this. It's got the Grover tuners, and everything about this guitar totally rocks. Now I don't get kickbacks from them or anything like that, but they were nice enough to let me keep this, and it's just a beautiful sounding guitar. If you're unfamiliar with Little Crow, definitely check him out, littlecrowguitars.com. And check out another dude called Justin Johnson as well. He had a viral video on Facebook, I think a little while back. Phenomenal guitar player from the US. He plays Little Crow guitars as well. It's an absolute beast on guitar. He's just fantastic. So overall, this is a great guitar. It's nice and light. This is kind of like the best of both worlds, kind of like the PRS in many ways. You get that neck humbucker tone or mini humbucker tone, but it's clearer than a conventional humbucker. So this sort of sits in my collection at a very unique sort of spot as well, and I really dig it. So yeah, there we go. Beautiful. Up next, we have another Little Crow guitar. This is actually the Raven, which is loaded with 2 humbucker pickups. Has a 4-way toggle switch, so you can get neck, both out of phase, and then bridge pickup as well. And you use this little switch here to switch between the pickups. It's actually quite tight, actually. I might see if I can loosen that a little bit. But that said, what a tone. This thing sounds unbelievable. Briley pickups in combination with the scale length and all that kind of stuff. They've just done something extremely great with this guitar. It looks beautiful as well. The finish is really, really cool. This has essentially the same neck as the Corvino. So if you like your 52 tallies, it's absolutely beautiful. Notice the headstock there. Slightly different color to the other one, which looks pretty good. And yeah, check it out. It's just, I reckon out of all the guitars I've received from Little Crow Guitars, this one probably has the best finish on the neck. Just something about it feels spectacular in the hand. For me personally, I like both pickup combinations on this guitar, which is odd for me. I'm usually a neck or bridge guy. And I also really dig the out of phase thing going on, that Peter Green thing. It seems to do that extremely well. So yeah, overall it's a really great sounding guitar, and it's not overly heavy. It's nowhere near the same weight of a Les Paul. It's definitely not as light as the Corvino. I would put this around the same weight as my 52 tally, maybe slightly lighter. So overall, it's a really great guitar as well. So yeah, check them out. This next guitar is a guitar that I actually forgot I even had. I know that's crazy. I did intend on selling this, but I ended up keeping it because I thought, you know what? Odds are I'm probably gonna do some pickup swap videos at some particular point, and this would be the perfect platform for that. This is the Blake Wright Santa Fe electric guitar in left-handed. This turned up last year, and I would put this in a similar ballpark to the Squier Classic Vibes in terms of quality and feel. So if you like the Classic Vibe stuff, you're definitely gonna love that. If you're wondering what the deal is with the pickguard, the plastic is still on it, as you can see here. I just haven't taken that off. This is loaded with 2 P90s. I should play this more. I think I need to make a slight intonation setup on it and maybe replace the strings as well. But this actually has the lawsuit kind of headstock going on here as well. It's got that Gibson-esque headstock, which isn't their production one. I think this was kind of like a one-off. But that said, it's a really great guitar. And the thing that I really dig about this is, you know, they're like 140 bucks, 160 bucks or something like that. But they're extremely light. This is as light as any of the lightest guitars in my collection. It's lighter than the PRS. It's probably around the same weight as the Corvino. So it weighs nothing. And it's just, for its price, it's a hard guitar to beat. I don't work for Blake Wright or anything like that. He just sent this out to get some videos done. And I thought, you know what? I'm gonna keep this because realistically for me to sell this, it's not really worth my time to get rid of it. So this can be a guitar that I maybe change some pickups in, or maybe have as a P90 option once I do some small setup tweaks and actually play it. It plays really good already, but it's got some really light strings on here, so I want to change them out, maybe adjust the neck action slightly as well, so maybe fix up the intonation. But overall, it's a really nice guitar, and that's what it looks like up close there. This is the sort of guitar that, you know, you could have some fun changing and modding it and all that, but for me personally, you know, once I get a guitar set up right, it's just going to feel good. So there's the headstock again there. Still in tune, which is awesome because I haven't played it for probably 3 months. For those who have been a subscriber for a long time, you know I have a whole lot of different backing tracks that I use on my channel. I actually record all the bass parts with this. This is the Ibanez Soundgear SR300L. The L stands for lefty. This is one of those bass guitars that you can find on the secondhand market for next to nothing that sounds extremely good. I would put this up with anything else I've heard, you know, in terms of bass tone. I just absolutely love it. It's got an active electronic section to it as well. You can add more lower mids or treble. It actually has this fat boost as well. It's just a really great bass for recording as well as playing live. I'll take this to the jam nights, plug it in, and it will sound great. It doesn't buzz or do anything weird. So to put it into some sort of context, I actually paid around 130 bucks Australian for this guitar. Believe it or not, it was brand new. It still had the plastic on the back. I bought it off this chick who was having a kid and didn't want to play bass anymore, and she was more than happy to sell it. The reason I like the Soundgear stuff is the neck shape. It's really quite thin down here, so if you're a guitarist looking to get into some bass, I can highly recommend these Ibanez Soundgears, or even a Squier PJ bass. They're a really good one as well if you just want to get going with it, which can sound fine in a live situation as well. I've owned a couple of different basses over the years. I think this is my 3rd Soundgear, and I've also owned a couple of Squier bass guitars. I'm just going to give the edge to this based on how comfortable the neck is to play. The action's great, and having those active electronics, whether you use them or not, is also a really good addition. So this is the only bass that I'm going to own because I don't see there being any point to actually owning another one when all I do with it is use it at home and take it to the jam nights. So for me, one bass is plenty, and I've got to dig this finish as well. It's probably a little bit hard to see on the video, but it's got a kind of sparkle vibe to it. The only thing I don't like about this bass, being honest, is the way that the jack goes in this way. You have to have a straight edge jack for this particular guitar. If you have a 90-degree one, it's not actually going to fit in there. So that's the only small thing about it that I don't like. Otherwise, you know, the same strings I've had on there since I bought it. Same old thing, same old story, but yeah, really great bass guitars. I have never actually owned an Ibanez electric guitar in a lefty. I just haven't had a chance to own one or play one that I thought, yeah, I definitely want to own that. Not to say that they're not good, but I'm a huge fan of the Soundgears. A good mate of mine used to play these, and I gotta say, he was on the money with, you know, performance. For what you pay for these, they're almost unrivaled on the secondhand market. Like, try find a bass that's this cheap that plays and sounds as good as it does. So Ibanez Soundgear, good stuff. So before we get into the pedals, I thought I would explain the whole blues wall thing and what's going on with it. So I always get asked a few questions like, what's up with the horror movie poster? Or is that a white zombie poster? Or what is it? So this particular poster here is actually an Italian horror movie called Zombie. It's also called Zombie 2 without the E on the end. It's got a couple of different names depending on where you live. I'm a huge fan of cheesy horror movies. There's something about them that, I don't know, I've always liked. So this wall kind of represents some of my favorite artists. Obviously, my biggest influence at the moment is this guy, even though I can't play like him. Just a great player, really lovely guy, Chris Kane. Definitely check him out if you live in the Bay Area, or he travels around the world as well. So definitely check him out. We've got Michael Burks, who died, unfortunately. Reminds me a lot of Albert King vocally, but absolutely rips on electric guitar as well. It's phenomenal. Then we've got some of the classics, Muddy Waters. You know, I got into him in the early days of playing blues. I listened to a lot of his stuff. James Brown, who I actually got to see live, just an absolute phenomenal musician, great band, all that kind of stuff. Just, you know, mind-blowing. Van Morrison. Now, a lot of people only know his popular music, but I can highly recommend you checking out some of his more modern albums. I think they're much, much better. Yeah, we've got Hendrix, obviously, lefty, great player, great songwriter. The Blues Brothers, kind of where it all started for me musically. I have a feeling that was the catalyst for the love of blues. I'm almost 100% certain that's where it happened. JJ Grey and Mofro, this is a poster a lot of people go, what's with the whales? If you don't know JJ Grey and Mofro, check them out. They're a Florida-based band, or Georgia, somewhere there. And just the guy who sings, man, is unbelievable. Great band. So definitely check them out if you like something a little bit different that's still kind of rootsy. John Lee Hooker, one of my all-time favorites. Yeah, his boogies and all that were just great. And I love the stuff that he did with John Lee Hooker as well. That album, Too Long in Exile, definitely check that out. It's a great album. Johnny Cash, because Johnny Cash rocks. What can I say? Great songs, timeless stuff, awesome. Now, Dr. John, definitely one of my favorite artists. One of the catalysts for me wanting to play music as well. Back before I was really dabbling in it, I was listening to Dr. John going, I love this music. It's something kind of like blues, but a little bit different. It's got that swamp thing and the haunting music as well. Dr. John can play everything. Great guitar player, great piano player, and I've seen his band live. It was one of the best concerts I've ever been to in my entire life. Now we have the Cream poster here. I'm not a huge fan of Cream, to be honest, but Eric Clapton I was a huge fan of. He was pretty much the guy that I heard play electric guitar, and I thought, I want to do this. When I first heard the album From the Cradle, I thought, wow, this guy's something else. So one of the more modern guys here, we've got John Mayer here, who I've kind of gone off over the last few years, but you know, his Trio album is fantastic. Thus, I've actually used the Trio poster as opposed to any of his regular stuff. B.B. King, an Albert King poster there. And we've got the B.B. King one here. So obviously Albert King. I want to get a proper Albert King poster for this room at some point. I've had trouble finding one that prints well, but Albert's one of my favorites. And that's the Van Morrison poster as well. Up here we have Buddy Guy. I'm a huge Buddy Guy fan. Buddy's live show is phenomenal. Jimmy Vaughan, who I'm not a huge fan of, but I don't mind some of his stuff. His shuffles are pretty cool. He's got that old school kind of simple, well, it sounds simple, but it's not, blues approach. I just don't like his vocals that much, but he seems like a nice guy and a talented dude. Down here we have another B.B. King poster. These are the ones you don't see a lot as well. So we've got Willie Dixon, another Van Morrison one down here, which you see in a lot of photos. I kind of stage a lot of my pedal shots, kind of like this. So you can see that the lamp is there. We've got the pedal there, which is just there because I'm taking photos of it later. And the Van Morrison poster. So we've got this one called the Levitate Festival. A lot of people say, what festival's that? You know what? I have no idea. I liked it just because it was colorful. Down here as well, we've got another JJ Grey Mofro poster. That one's down there because it's actually reflective. I've had that one. It's sort of like got a plastic covering on it. It's laminated. So this one was the Doors. This is definitely one I'm going to replace. I don't mind the Doors, but I've got way more posters now that I can replace, and you'll see some of these change coming up. And over here, next to the subscribe button, if you're not already subscribed, of course, we have, which is going to be hard to see. Let's see if I can crank up the gain a little bit. Let me see about this. This one here is the Eric Clapton Crossroads Festival one. You're getting some weird reflections because I got some lights down here as well on the floor. These are things you probably don't notice when I shoot from the front, but that's kind of like the quick overview of the blues wall. I wanted to do something other than the green screen. The green screen took a lot of time to make and it lacked a lot of personality. So what you're seeing is essentially my brain right here. This is all the stuff that I've loved over the years in terms of music, or just some of it anyway. I mean, I like all styles of music, but in terms of the blues, roots, country stuff, these guys would be definitely my favorite. New Orleans, obviously, Dr. John. I'm going to change up this wall every now and then. Like I said, I've just printed up a whole lot of other stuff. It has a whole lot more personality than the green screen, which was fun, but a lot of work. And I think now that the camera equipment has gotten better, the lighting's good, and I've got a very unique sort of backdrop, I think it's a good thing to have. And it's stinking hot, so some of these posters will need to be stretched back out, but that's just how it goes. That's the small downside of this. Once every now and then when it gets hot, I need to kind of stretch the posters back out, but that's the wall right there. So that's the blues wall. All right, onto the pedals. All right, over to my main pedal board. Yep, this is my main pedal board. It's nice and small. I used to have a larger one that I've bought and sold a few times now, and I always end up coming back to this, what I would consider a pretty simple rig. Starting on this side, we have the Boss TU2 tuner. It's just a really reliable tuner. It mutes your signal when you want to tune up, so it's awesome. Over here we have the Royal Flush dual overdrive pedal from VS Audio. These are made in Greece, and I love this pedal. It's not set up the way I would like it. It's obviously been knocked around in my bag. But that said, it's just a really great pedal. It's one of the best, if not the best, dual pedal I've ever used. It's musical, it does everything great. This channel is kind of like a higher gain version of this channel, so it stacks well, all that kind of stuff. It's really, really great. I prefer this on the majority of my guitars, except for if I'm playing my 335 or Les Paul. I'll generally use this one. This is the Carrera Overdrive from Buffalo Effects. This is just an absolute monster. Both of these pedals work well together. I can turn this on, stack either channel into that. It's going to sound great. Stack all three or just use one or the other. It's definitely going to give me the sounds that I like. And that's why I have both of these on my board. They've kind of like been tested in a live situation enough now to go, you know what? These pedals are just really, really great. I'd have no hesitations recommending either of these to anyone who likes just really great tone. This one is the Vibler from VS Audio as well, same company as this. It's kind of like that vibratone kind of sound. It's great for comping behind another guitarist, all that kind of stuff. So if you're looking to play some, get some organ-ish kind of sounds going on, or like a Leslie, that's a really good option. It sounds really analog. The wave actually goes above and below your volume, which makes it sound really 3D, as opposed to some that go under your volume. So it doesn't sound like the volume's getting cut. It just sounds really, really great. This is the newest addition on my board. This is the Tille pedal from Chocalis Audio. Hopefully I've pronounced that correctly. This particular one has replaced the Wampler Tape Echo, which is an amazing pedal. It's one or the other. Both are really, really good. I've used this live a few times now, and a number of times, and it's great. It really is. It fits great on the board as well, which is another reason I like it. It's simple. It doesn't have a lot of things on here that I find unnecessary. It just does what it does extremely well. If you like simple pedals, this is a really good approach. If you need tap tempo and all that, the Wampler is definitely the way to go. But for me personally, this does the job just as it's set right now. So the way I run this pedal is in tape mode with the switch up, and it adds a little bit of modulation to the signal as well, which is great. You can't control that. It's set to a preset amount. If you don't like it, you can simply go back down to analog mode. It gives you a straight analog delay. This is an amazing sounding pedal. It's dead quiet, which is another reason I like this one over the Wampler. It doesn't hiss or do anything weird. It's just dead quiet, and it works extremely well. Now, I have three types of patch cables that I use the most. This particular one is the Neutrik. This goes from my wah pedal into my tuner, and this is a really good quality one. I like this one the most for going externally, or external off the board, and then all of my other ones are either rattlesnake cables, which are the ones like this, or Covenant cables, which are the ones like this. Now, these are all really great cables. I've sent a couple of different cables from other manufacturers, and these are the ones that I decided to use on my board. And I've knocked my power supply out, which is pretty common. So yeah, I've got a Pedal Train mini board with a bag that comes with it as well. And for those wondering what wah pedal I use, I get a lot of questions about wah pedals. This is the one that I use right here, and this is my favorite still to this day. You can't see it, but it's the GCB 95F. It's just a really great sounding wah. I've had a chance to try a few. I'm actually going to do a shootout coming up between 3 different types of wah pedals, but I like how mellow this is, especially when you push your toe down and it gets, like the high frequencies come in. I think it sounds way better than most wah pedals, and I've tried many over the years, and I always come back to this guy. So the GCB 95F. People say it can suck your tone. I've never experienced that with it at all. Maybe I need some new ears. Now, the power supply that I use on the most part is still this, the Visual Sound One Spot. If you've seen any of my other gear rundown videos over the last 5 years, you'll know I've had this. This is exactly the same one. It's still going strong. I do have a portable battery pack that I use, but I always forget to charge that up properly or whatever. So this particular thing for me is always the one that I take with me. I'll always take this as a backup option anyway to something that's portable, just because you never know if the battery's fully charged or what. But yeah, the one spots have done just the business for me for the last, you know, probably 7 years. I don't know how long I've had this. I've had it a long time, so it just keeps on going strong. Visual Sound isn't called Visual Sound anymore. They're called True Tone. They've probably also changed the name of these to the True Tone One Spot, but I'm sure you can find these online or Amazon or wherever. Nice and easy as well. The great thing about these is they're 1700 milliamps output at 9 volts. So 1700 milliamps is more than enough to power all of the pedals that are on my board. And I'll very rarely ever have them all on at the same time. But you know, there'll be occasion where I'll have at least 2 overdrive pedals on and also maybe a delay or something like that. So it does it no problems. It's still kind of overkill basically, but it works fine. So yeah, that's my pedal board. It is nice and simple is good. Get familiar with any type of effects that you enjoy using and just stick with them for a while, because you can go out and buy new pedals and all that kind of stuff. While it may actually sound different originally, sometimes you can also just dial in the same tone from one overdrive as you can another one just by playing around with the controls. And that's one of those misconceptions that, you know, every dirt pedal sounds completely different. You tend to dial it in the way that you like it to sound, which is probably the way that another pedal that you might already own sounds. So food for thought there. That's my board. I hope you like it. Yeah. So in terms of my demos, I use this particular power supply. This is the Kalen power supply. It's an isolated one. It has basically everything I could possibly need. We've got the 18 volts over here, then we've got 12 volts, and then we've got a couple of high 300 milliamp 9 volt ones here, as well as a whole lot of 100 milliamp ones over here. The blue tack is because I stick the pedals on there when I film, so I just leave that on there. This power supply has been amazing. I've had this for a few years, and when I purchased it, I didn't know what to expect, and it totally exceeded my expectations. These are really, really good. Kalen make great stuff. These power supplies way outperform their price point. Let's just put it that way. If it wasn't good, I wouldn't use it on every single demo, so it does the job fine. I think this is the last thing that I'm going to cover on this particular gear rundown. This is just a little bit of an insight into how I record and what I use and all that kind of stuff. So you'll see some YouTubers out there with these elaborate setups and they can't record a clean tone to save themselves. I like to keep all of my stuff pretty simple. I just use this. It's the UR22 MK2 from Steinberg. I record innuendo on my actual computer in this room. But that said, this sound card is great. I can record with either 57 mics or Rode M3s or whatever and get a really, really musical sound. This particular preamp does everything that I need it to do for what I do for YouTube. 2 inputs is about as much as I'll ever need. I record all my voice straight to the video camera, so it makes it easy. I don't need anything more elaborate than this. Below it we have the 2 Notes Torpedo Live, which I use on the majority of my pedal demos. I've referenced my actual Blues Deluxe speaker, which is the Swamp Thing, and it keeps the videos very, very consistent. It might not sound as good as actually miking up an amp, you know, at a really loud volume, but it sounds extremely, just very, very accurate and close, and it's the best I can do. I don't use this for every single demo, especially on amp demos and that. Of course, I'm just gonna mic up the amp, but there's anytime I basically mention the microphone on the video, it means I'm not using this. So this particular load box is fantastic if you're a home studio guy, you want to do YouTube videos or something like that. You can't really go wrong with one of these units. They're not cheap, and there's a lot of other ways you can go about recording electric guitar, but they're extremely functional. Look at my desk. That's all I have. I go from the speaker output on my amp into this, and then into this, and I'm done. Nice and simple, and you don't really need much else. You see these other guys with just loads more rack gear. It's useless these days. You don't need all that stuff, so don't buy more than you need. Learn to get a good sound through whatever you like, and this has been used on albums already for not only myself, but other people that I've produced, which has also had radio play and all that kind of thing as well. So this particular unit, arguably one of the best products of the year for me. 2 Notes Torpedo Live. Huge thumbs up. So there it is, as of January 2018, that's all the gear that I have that I use either when I'm playing live or when I'm doing YouTube stuff. I do have a smaller pedal board, but that's not consistent. That basically is like a test board where I might take this or that to the jam and just give it a shot. Stuff I've showed you today is the stuff that I could take to a gig or a jam, just plug in and I'm good to go. All the stuff that I actually use on my channel. Welcome to all the new subscribers as well. If you've lasted this long on the video, please give it a thumbs up, I appreciate that. If you didn't enjoy it, please give it a thumbs down, I appreciate that as well. All feedback is good. If you want to know anything more about any of the stuff that's in this video, please let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I know a few people might be asking, oh, what did you do with this amp? What did you do with that amp? I basically can't keep everything that I either demo or I can't keep everything that I own. It's just not practical. And I like to move things on if I don't use stuff for a while as well. So that's my collection. Will I add another amp to it in 2018? We'll see. Maybe something will tickle my fancy. I don't know. We'll see what we can do. I'm actually this weekend coming up as of tomorrow, which this video won't be up tomorrow. But anyway, tomorrow, my time, I'm actually going to check out some gear with Dr. Rick. So that should be very, very dangerous. So what I like personally is just finding really great deals on the secondhand market. I don't think you can go wrong. Like I said, if you didn't see the actual deal of the century for me, I'll pop it up in the cards and you can check that out. It was stunning how good of a deal I got. I hope you liked this video. I hope you liked the picture quality. I'm testing out a new camera as well. So please give me some feedbacks on the visuals. Hopefully it's a bit better than normal. We'll see how it goes. It's my first official run with this actual video camera. Haven't used it for anything else, so hopefully it looks good. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate your time and we'll catch you all soon. Catch you soon. See ya.